Good afternoon, everyone. It's 2 p.m. already in my clock, so I think we can already start. No? Many thanks again to all for joining this webinar entitled Institutions, Food Security and Nutrition, a Philippine Experience, hosted by the Ateneo SDG2 working group composed of Ateneo de Manila, Ateneo de Davao, and Xavier University Ateneo de Cagayan. Let us now all settle down and listen to the Philippine National Anthem, followed by a prayer.
Magiliw, pelas ang sinanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiin. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bakaw, may nilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdiningning, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng luwalhating pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang hinigaya na pag may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Nothing is more practical than finding God. That is, than falling in love in a quite absolute, final way. What you are in love with, what seizes your imagination, will affect everything. It will decide what will get you out of bed in the mornings, what you will do with your evenings, how you spend your weekends, what you read, who you know, what breaks your heart, and what amazes you with joy and gratitude. Fall in love, stay in love, and it will decide everything.
Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon again. As you know, food systems play a crucial role in shaping nutrition and health outcomes of a population. In the Philippines, various factors, including socioeconomic disparities, geographical challenges, and policy inefficiencies affect access to nutritious and safe food. In the middle of 2020, the Philippines already reached an undernutrition prevalence of around 20%, exacerbated by economic lockdowns during the COVID pandemic. Higher inflation rates of basic food items have resulted in further increasing the number of hungry Filipinos, while undernutrition caused a very high rate of child stunting, placing the country in one of the top 10 countries worldwide. So in 2020, the working group on SDG2's Zero Hunger started
Recording in progress.
gathering of food security advocates for faculty members and administrative staff of the Ateneo de Manila University, Xavier University, and the Ateneo de Davao University, as well as the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, an academic network in the Philippines and all over the world that was actually focusing on different sustainability issues. I'm Randy Tuanyo. I'm the Dean, currently the Dean of the Ateneo School of Government and one of the conveners of the working group. To begin our webinar this afternoon, may I just ask you to inform you of some logistical reminders. Please change your Zoom name into this format, institution underscore then your name, or you can put your institution's acronym underscore then your nickname and then last name. Second, please make sure that you mute your microphone so it's not being used during the webinar. There will be opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentations, and that's only then we will ask you just to type your questions in the chat. Then third, feel free to use the chat box if you have any questions or comments, especially towards the end of the webinar. So as you know, since late 2020, this working group that we have in the Ateneo has been organizing webinars on various themes and topics related to food systems, shifting from a narrow focus only on single sectors related to hunger, such as agricultural production, health, nutrition, environment, towards a systems-thinking approach for far-reaching understanding and analysis of the complexity and interconnectedness of our food problems and challenges. So as of the end of 2024, a total of 25 webinars have been organized with the overall aim of raising the consciousness and awareness of faculty, staff, students, especially coming from Ateneo, the different Ateneos and different schools and institutions linked with the SDSN network all over the country, using a food systems framework and approach into the problems of hunger, malnutrition, agriculture production, access, availability of food, the effects of climate change, environment, food sovereignty and sustainability, food safety, food waste, and others. The webinar that we will have on institutions, food security and institution, aims to explore these several critical issues, exploring a platform for expert insights and youth perspectives to generate actionable solutions for promoting nutrition and health equity. The objectives of this webinar are the following. First, to analyze the current state of food systems and their impact on nutrition and health in the Philippines. Second, to discuss barriers to accessing nutritious food, including the economic, cultural, and systemic factors affecting it. Third, to engage youth leaders in identifying innovative strategy for improving food and nutrition security. And lastly, to foster collaboration between academic institutions, government agencies, and student communities. We are very privileged to have two excellent speakers in this online forum. So we're very fortunate to have them speaking and making presentations during this afternoon. So these are the two individuals that I highly respect and have been working really on this issue of food systems, food security for many decades now in the country. So before they present, let me introduce first our two main speakers. Our first presenter is Dr. Gilbert M. Lianto, who is currently a trustee of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies and team leader, Regulatory Reform Support Program for National Development, or RESPOND, a project of the University of the Philippines Public Administration Foundation. He was president of the policy think tank, Philippine Institute for Development Studies in 2013 to 2018. Before this, he was senior fellow and vice president of PIDS, Undersecretary of the National Economic and Development Authority, and Executive Director of the Agricultural Credit and Policy Council of the Department of Agriculture. He also served as President of the Philippine Economic Society and was Regional Coordinator of the East Asian Development Network. Currently, he is also an Associate Editor of the Philippine Review of Economics, co-chaired of the editorial board of the Philippine Journal of Development, and a reviewer and referee of many technical journals, including the World Development, Philippine Review of Economics, Economic Development and Sustainability, and many others. He has published numerous studies and papers in banking and finance, microfinance, housing finance, local government finance, infrastructure regulation, regulatory management, and his recent publications include many also books. I understand that Dr. Lianto also taught at Ateneo early in his career. So thank you very much, Dr. Lianto, for accepting our invitation to present. Our second speaker, let me introduce them one by one, and then I'll ask Dr. Lianto to make his presentation. Our second speaker is Mark Lawrence Cruz, a dedicated advocate for community development and education in the Philippines. His journey with Kawad Kalinga began in 2004 as a volunteer community organizer in Gabaldon, Nueva Ecija, assisting 121 families by typhoons. Currently, Mark is spearheading the new initiatives department at Kawad Kalinga. He's also the director of the School for Experiential and Entrepreneurial Development, Philippines. In addition to his roles in GK, Mark contributes to academia as a faculty member of the Department of Philosophy and also the Ateneo School of Government as well, where he earned his degrees in philosophy and public management, and is currently pursuing a PhD in public administration at the University of the Philippines. Mark unfortunately cannot join us this afternoon. He's currently in Palawan, where his internet connection is weak. So he's asked Ms. Norhaya de Macaling to represent him in this webinar. Ms. de Macaling is a director for program of the School for Experiential and Entrepreneurial Development, Inc. She is a licensed agriculturist and advocate for sustainable development, and has been working in the development sector for almost 11 years, working with youth, farmers, and fisherfolk. So with our two excellent speakers introduced, I will now turn over the floor to Dr. Lianto. Sir, would you like to make your presentation now?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Prof. Randy. I'm not sure if I'm seen because my camera seems not to be working. But do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you clearly, sir. And
Okay.
they're going to flash your...
Recording stopped.
Okay. I can see myself now.
Okay, yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. We see you.
Sorry that I cannot switch to the background ng webinar, no? Because I have a problem with this camera. But nevertheless, it's a pleasure to be here. I have a short presentation. I understand I have 20 minutes. So let me just go through the presentation outline. I believe perhaps somebody from your side can
Recording in progress.
send the PowerPoint.
Yes, sir. Actually,
Pinadala ko
okay.
kay Jessica last night. Okay,
Yes,
that's it.
it's presenting it.
Let me go to the next slide, please, which is the presentation outline. I propose to discuss in 20 minutes the following: a quick understanding of food security, the state of food security and nutrition in the Philippines, and look at the economic impacts. And then a quick stab at the factors behind food insecurity and malnutrition, and then the role of institutions. I believe that this discussion will cover mostly the theme of the seminar. Next slide, please. Food security, this is from FAO. It's often understood as just making food available to people, no? But food security is deeper than that. The concept spans 4 dimensions, and here we see availability, accessibility, utilization, and stability. Common understanding is availability of food, but food will be irrelevant if it's not affordable or accessible. And then this webinar focuses on nutrition. That's why we have utilization here. Utilization as an element of food security is about the nutrition aspect of food, and stability would refer to stability of supply. We need to be sure that the food is available any time of the year. Next slide, please. So to understand food security, we have to look at it from a time dimension. There is transitory as well as chronic food security. Transitory food insecurity may be brought about by short-term shocks, by such things as fluctuations in food prices, variations in food production, and also variations in income. So this could be transitory or temporary. But what is more important is to look at chronic food insecurity, which could be due to several factors. And table will tell you that's a quick summary of how it can be overcome. So chronic food insecurity can be overcome by long-term development measures, which we want to discuss shortly in this afternoon's webinar. Next slide, please. to look at to understand the state of food insecurity or security in the Philippines, maybe we can take a look at this presentation. This is Global Food Security Index in ASEAN in 2022. It's always good to compare our achievement with those of our fellow comparators in the ASEAN. And well, this is not good news for us, because if you compare ourselves with Vietnam, Vietnam is more food secure than the Philippines. Vietnam is ranked 46th in a country, and a total number of countries 113. Philippines is only 67th. Indonesia fared much better. It's 63rd in rank. And of course, Malaysia is more advanced than us. There's a 41st in among 113 countries. So this was the situation in 2022. Sorry that I could not bring here a more recent information, but at least this will give us an idea of how we compare with other countries. The next slide shows the 2020 food security ranking, also in ASEAN, and Philippines there is 73, Vietnam is 63. And if you flip back to the earlier slide, Vietnam has achieved what, the 46th. Can you show the previous slide, 2022? Vietnam is 46th. And in this recent slide in 2020, Vietnam is 63. So it's a remarkable achievement of Vietnam in terms of food security, whereas the Philippines has been quite slow in attaining food security. That's the message of these two slides. Next slide, please. Let's look at the Global Hunger Index 2024. Next slide. So in this slide, we see the 2024 Global Hunger Index. Philippines ranks 67th out of 127 countries, with sufficient data to calculate 2024 GHI scores. So what is the basis for the GHI score? It's in the lower left, lower quadrant, left-hand side, lower quadrant. It says there that what brought us to the 67th rank here. 6% of the population is undernourished. Almost 27% of children are stunted. More than 5% of children under 5 are wasted. And almost 3% of children die before their 5th birthday, which brings us to Global Hunger Index of 14.4. And it says here it's moderate. But it's not a reason for comfort, despite the downward trend of GHI score for the Philippines. In 2000, it's 24.9. In 2008, 18.9. So we are making progress. In 2024, it's 14.4%. But what does it mean? It means that 6% of the population is undernourished, 27% of children are under 5 or stunted, and 5.4% of children under 5 are wasted, and 3% of children die before their 5th birthday. So this is a horrible state of horrible situation, and I will try to point out why this is not an acceptable status or state. Next slide, please. We try to bring in data from the SWS, which is tracking total, moderate, and severe hunger in the Philippines. Just look at the right-hand side. 22% in Metro Manila are hungry, and there are more hungry people in Mindanao at 30.3%. So the SWS there says hunger rate at its highest since the pandemic, and the graph shows the comparison of total, moderate, and severe hunger of different administrations, from Estrada to Arroyo to Aquino, Duterte, and Marcos Jr. So right now, 22.2% hunger rate in Metro Manila. Next slide, please. This is the malnutrition trend, and this is tracked by the National Nutrition Survey of the Food and Nutrition Research Institute. So you have their stunting, underweight, and wasting. On the positive side, there's been a downward trend, but still you have a sizable number of children under 5 which are malnourished. Next slide would be the rate of stunting of children under 5 in the Philippines by municipality. So the worst situation would be in BARM, where 45% of children below 5 are stunted. In Mimaropa, 41%. So these are the poorest areas of the country. And if you look, this is by municipality. The next slide presents same data by region. So overall, Philippines, 33.4%. And the second, or rather the highest rate of stunting is in Mimaropa. So whether you look at it from the point of view of municipality or region, BARM, not Mimaropa, BARM registered the highest rate of stunting in Filipino children under 5 years old. And we explain why later why this is a cause of concern. Next slide, please. Again, another set of data looking at anemia and vitamin A deficiency among children and pregnant women. So not flattering, but I would say we have a lot of work to do with respect to really making our children and pregnant women more healthy. Now let's go to the effects of malnutrition. Next slide, please. These are the reasons why we are concerned with stunting, underweight, and chronic deficiency in vitamin A, because this will result to muscle wasting. This will have the deleterious effect on the body, not only on the body but on cognitive ability, and reduce immunity, wound healing, and infection fighting. So this impacts most especially the children. And the next slide would tell you, okay, what's critical would be to nourish children in the first 1,000 days. So it starts from the womb. So if the child has not been sufficiently nourished in the womb, then it goes out, it's given birth to, and it stands a low chance of success in the world, given its morbidity and weak constitution. Next slide, please. So let's look at the impact on people undernutrition. 3 channels. This is from the World Bank. If you care, you can download this publication and you can see the details. I just try to capture here the key channels, which are, okay, elevates the risk of morbidity and mortality. So if you look at people as from economic point of view and investment in society, investment in human capital, then it's easy to understand why we should be concerned with the state of malnutrition and undernourishment of children in this country, because this will be the human capital people we need, to grow our country, to develop, to grow our country and to develop. Second, it's associated with decreased lifelong earning potential. So there's a lot of research showing that the impact on cognitive ability will impact your lifelong earning potential and labor force productivity. So this is all about the ability to be meaningful participants in the labor force, and also to be upright citizens. If you have decreased lifelong earning potential, and if you're constantly out of labor force because you're always sick, then we know that this would have very high negative social impact. Next slide would tell you that aside from personal impact, because earlier we talked about people being out of work or not being able to work because they're not productive, they're always sick. This one looks at it from the public perspective. Sick people, constantly sick people, will be a burden to society. So the cost of healthcare and safety, social safety nets will be high, and it's largely borne by the public sector. And to be able to support these people, you may need to maybe increase taxes, borrow, but that would be what? Putting a burden on the population, really. And it's vicious cycle if the labor force is not productive, so that labor force cannot would be out of jobs. If you're out of a job is not created, there will be no taxes. So where will you get the money to support all of these people? You need to borrow, but borrowing debt, you have to repay. So it's a vicious cycle. So all told, next slide tells you, okay, this will cost us rather in 2015 around $4.4 billion or 1.5% of the Philippine GDP. Now, what is worrisome is if you take a look at this, what we call human capital index, is from the World Bank and UNICEF. So we have a human capital index of 0.52. So what does it mean? It means that the future productivity of a child born today, the malnourished child, will be 48% below what could have been achieved with complete education and full health. If the child is very healthy, then that child will be very productive in the future. But from the very start, it's already weighed down by poor health. So in the future, its productivity will be almost 50% lower than the same child, let's say, who probably is born in, let's say, Malaysia or in Vietnam, because Vietnam, as we saw earlier, ranked 43rd among 127 countries. Philippines rank about 71 of 127 countries. So the economic impact is there's an adverse economic impact. Now, why so? Because I just cite two factors: poverty. The next one is inability of the economy to produce jobs, meaningful jobs. That's the second. Now, supply side factors. So there's a demand side and a supply side factors which explain the state of nutrition in the country. It's because we don't produce enough food and the performance. It's because of the political economy of food trade. We are dependent on food trade to bring in the foods to nourish our people, but there's a lot of problem there. Politicians intervene. Then you have climate change and disaster risk. So all told, what happens is that food system is negatively affected, and you have shortages, rising prices, rising hunger, and worsening of food security and nutrition. So next slide will just give you a picture of if you want to look at what's happening. The next slide, average annual growth rates in value of production. Next slide, please. Because we don't have much time. Okay, just gloss over this just to show you that there's research behind this. Now let's go to what we want, the last few slides, because I'll end up by looking at institutions, given the remaining time. So what we want would be policy measures for structural transformation and modernization of agriculture. Now, incidentally, there's a whole book, 2 volumes of this. This is a post-pandemic policy for food security, produced by National College of Public Administration and Government, UP. I'm one of the 2 editors. There are 16 chapters, 2 volumes. Andito lahat yung mga explanation. What I'm discussing here are drawn from this book. If you care to look, this can be downloaded. It's free copy. So we want policy measures that will modernize agriculture. We want to be able to anticipate shocks so that we can respond accordingly. And we want sustainable programs. And last of all, we need strong and effective institutions. Fine. Next slide, please. So what's the next slide? What is the problem? Problem is not about policies. We know we have good policies, we have good laws, but always deficiency in implementation. So efficient implementation remains a weakness of public governance in the Philippines, and there's a need to determine an appropriate governance framework for food security. Next. This is what we want. Look at, in the center, you have affected systems. Think of that as the food system. From the left-hand side, systemic shock comes in. This could be pandemic, this could be disaster. What you want would be at the top of this slide, policy and program intervention that will make the food system resilient. Now, what are these? Take a look. Look at food security from a dual track perspective. One, because you're talking about transitory food insecurity, you need social protection. you need to shore up on the nutrition intervention. And since you're also talking about chronic, remember our time I mentioned earlier, we said you can look at it from two perspectives, chronic and in transitory, temporary. Maybe you need social protection, or maybe you need some subsidy. But we are more concerned with chronic food insecurity, and the cure there is to modernize and transform the agriculture and fishery sector. You need a systems approach. Next slide shows you what we mean by systems approach. Next slide, please. Well, this is just a depiction of what we mean. You know, when you say systems, it's not just one institution or one intervention alone. All of these have to be able. You have to look at the interplay of different factors, and the economic manager must be able to pin down on what levers to push in order to produce good food system outcomes. Next slide, please. So, institution-wise, you need to understand that there is need for horizontal collaboration, meaning amongst government agencies. You need also vertical coordination between national and local government, but bring in LGUs, local communities, and the book I showed you earlier also brings in the role of corporations and households. So this is a whole of nation approach. People in government talk about whole of government, but I think in matters of food security and nutrition, it's a whole of nation approach, meaning everybody should be involved. Now, how do we do that? We need strong institutions. Let's look at the next slide. There's a principal agent problem here. The actors or the principal, we the people are the principal, and we ask government agencies to act on our behalf. That's the essence of representative government. So there's a principal agent problem. It could be a problem if the actors do not perform according to the wishes of the people, the principal, according to the principles laid down by the principal. So there must be an account giving. And who is accountable? Often we think of DA, but no. If you look at the problem more closely, you talk of collaboration, coordination. You need all of these agencies to be able to work together. Now, so question is, who is accountable for ensuring food security? I don't have the answer. Maybe government and Congress should be able to pin down. So this is the institution accountable. At the end of the day, here, this institution be answerable to the public, where appropriate sanctions and recognition could be applied. In sum, let me go to the last slide. You need a systems approach. Why? Because you need to be able to have, you need consistent policies and interventions. Also, you need more effective coordination, not only vertical, but also horizontal across government, national government, local government, community, and private sector. And you need an effective institutional structure. So we say you need to highlight accountability. Who is accountable? Whose head will roll if the country is found to be food insecure? And you need the dual track approach, understand the nuance of food insecurity, and introduce time dimension in designing strategies and interventions. I stop here. Sorry, and maybe I went over time for 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc Gilbert, and no problem at all. Actually, if you still need more time, no, that's. Thank you very much, no, for the very clear presentation, and I think the case that you made, no, on the importance really of thinking about institutional implications, no, of how do we improve our nutrition policy, no, actually was a very good. I mean, was the case that actually you made this afternoon. So thank you. It was a very clear presentation.
Thank you.
Next, we can go now to our next presenter, Narhaya. I think if you are already ready. So
Thank
you
you
also
po.
have, sige,
Yes,
maraming salamat. Sige. Yeah, please go ahead with the presentation.
Okay, while waiting for my presentation, so as you can hear as being presented by Dr. Rianto a while ago, the data that's being presented are actually alarming. And if we'll not do something about it, we'll be putting a lot of people, especially marginalized communities, into risk. Lalo na po yung mga magsasaka, mangingisdaan, lalo na yung mga kabataan natin. But we also have to accept the fact that these problems cannot be solved by government alone. This actually requires a collective effort and collective collaboration among different stakeholders, may it be in the government, the local government unit, the NGO, and other private institutions. So today, I will not go into technical, but rather really focusing more on giving inspiration and hope to everyone that maybe later on after this presentation or after today, you'll be ignited or you will be inspired to start small in your respective communities. So today, this afternoon, I'll be presenting to you one of our programs in the School for Experiential and Entrepreneurial Development. So just to give you a little background about SEED Philippines, is actually the agri-school system of the Gawad Kalinga. So one of the programs that we actually do in partnership with different communities in the Philippines is the community food farms. And before I go into details on this program, I would like to present first an overview on the status of the agriculture and fisheries sector in the Philippines. Next slide, please. So just to give you an overview, this data actually being presented by the Philippine Statistic Authority last 2022. If you're going to look at the country's labor force, that's actually accounted to about 47.70 million. And from this 47.70 million, 43.99 million is actually the sum or the total of country's labor force that are actually employed. But sad to say, from this 43.99 million, only 24.20% are actually working in the agriculture sector. So it's very ironic, no, because only 24.20%, but in fact, Philippines is considered as as agricultural country, then konti lang yung nag-work sa sector na to. With maybe because the average age or yung kita talaga dito sa pagsasaka is mababa lang. So based then doon sa data ng Philippine Statistic Authority, our fishermen and farmers actually receive an average of between 270 to 281 na basic salary per day. So next slide, please. So that's one. And if you're going to look at also the gross domestic product, last 2021, our GDP actually increased of about 5.7%. And from this 5.7% of the total gross domestic product noong 2021, only 9.6% were contributed from the agriculture, forestry, and fisheries sector. And this is an evidence wherein yung gross value added of agriculture and fisheries sector actually nag-decline siya to 0.3%, especially when the time that our livestock meat production have decreased their production to negative 17%, as well as our poultry meat production to negative 0.3%. Next slide. And if we're going to look at also the poverty in the agriculture and fisheries sector, I think all of you knows naman, you keep on hearing this news that the Filipino farmers and fisher folks are actually determined as the one of the poorest ng mga tao sa Pilipinas. They actually live, most of them living below the national poverty line. And as of 2018, there's a poverty incidence for farmers at about 31.6% and 26.2% for the fisher folks naman. And Philippines is also considered last 2022 ranked as the first in the world in natural hazards and exposure risk. And kadalasan yung mga magsasaka, yung mga isda natin with all these problems that we've been experiencing in our country, yung nagsasuffer po is yung mga magsasaka at mangingisda natin. Especially in terms of market because the differences na nakukuha nila between the farm gate and the retail prices. Next. So with all these problems that we keep on hearing from the news, from the different social media, we've also heard that the average age of the farmers nowadays is between 57 to 59 years old. And a majority of the young nowadays, if you want to ask them, doesn't want to engage in agriculture anymore because for them, it's one-way ticket to poverty. Madalas naririnig namin sa mga estudyante namin, ayoko sundan yung yapak ng mga magulang ko, yung yapak ng aking ama at ina dahil maghihirap lang ako. And majority of the parents, especially farmers and fisher folks, doesn't want their children also to follow their footsteps kasi they've experienced the poverty and they wanted something na mabago din yung buhay ng mga anak nila. And if we're going to look at also based on sa data ng Department of Agrarian report from 1998 to 2016, there is a total of 97,592.50 hectares na agricultural land that being approved na i-convert into non agricultural purposes. And during pandemic, especially if we're going to talk about the new normal, it was evident also that during COVID-19 pandemic, yung total production of the agricultural production have declined to 3.11%. And we're not just talking about the Philippines, we're actually talking about Southeast region. This is the time also that we've realized the importance of local food production because this is a time where we are having difficulty in accessing food, especially in terms of transportation. And also apart from the COVID-19 pandemic, we've also experienced during the time where the Ukraine and Russia have conflict, na-disrupt talaga yung global supply chain natin, which actually threatens yung supply and production ng bansa natin, which actually leads to food insecurity. And plus the fact that we have a continuous inflation rate. Last October 22, we've accounted to have an inflation rate na nag-increase to 7.7%. And maybe for some, they cannot experience this. They cannot feel the burden, but for marginalized communities, they are actually having problem on this because naapektuhan yung mga purchasing power ng bawat pamilya na to. And during that time ng 2021, we wanted to, apart from engaging more young people to engage into agriculture, we've also realized that we have to work hand in hand with different communities for us to be able to contribute in addressing food insecurity in the Philippines. That's why this is the reason why we've established this program. We called it Community Food Farm. So the main the program or the community food farm is actually a targeted intervention for food and income augmentation para sa ating mga for the four families. And each farm is actually designed to produce not just vegetables but also source of meat that can provide local food supply to participating communities as well as provide other source of income. And this community food farm is actually managed by communities, guided by and mentored by the graduates of the School for Experiential and Entrepreneurial Development, or the SEED Philippines. So as mentioned a while ago, SEED Philippines is the School of Gawad Kalinga for Agri-Entrepreneurship. And the main objective of this program is, number one, is to really provide or to serve as a reliable source of food augmentation for participating communities. We wanted to establish a local food source of food. That's why we designed it in a way that we assist communities we encourage communities to establish community food farms in their respective backyards. And once they have surplus, the second objective is actually to provide other source of income. Yung ibang community sa amin is kapag may sobra sila, they can actually sell that one in the neighboring communities or in the neighboring barangays. The third objective is to actually increase awareness of the benefits of farming and healthy eating among communities. So this whole program actually encourage also communities, empower them to really have a healthier lifestyle and promote nutritious eating habits by using produce that are locally made and free from chemicals. And last but not the least, this community food farm as well aim to provide different platforms by showcasing different types or models of community food farms, because we wanted to establish different models that can be applied both in urban and rural areas. So aligning on if it is the basic or integrated. So integrated, I mean. So what I mean by basic, so it actually it's a farm that focus on producing vegetables or crops, while integrated focus on producing various commodities that includes animals, livestock, poultry, different inputs that can actually be shared to other communities as well. And yeah, those are the objectives of the community food farms. And since we've established this program, we've actually established a total of 130 community food farms all over the Philippines. That's in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And each community food farm, the size of the community food farm is actually an average between 200 to 250 square meters. It depends on the location of the community. So if we're going to talk about communities located in the urban areas, so we expect that the total area is just small. But if we're going to look at the rural area, so some of the communities actually develop a land at about 500 to 750 square meters. So if we're going to sum up that 130 community food farms, that actually we actually have a total of 8 hectares developed agricultural land that continuously producing crops, organic crops, I mean natural crops, and animals such as livestock and poultry. And these 130 community food farms, it actually benefited 1,281 families all over the Philippines. And in the next slide, I'll be presenting to you some proof of concept that we have, the community food farms that we've established so far. Not all of them, I cannot present all of them because there are too many, but I'd like to highlight some of the community food farms that we have, to share to you some stories of some highlights or hope stories that they have so far. So for Luzon Island, we have a community food farm in Tondo. This is actually an urban area being managed by rank and file or the third party employees of the San Miguel Foundation, and their produce are actually being apart from giving it to their families, the surplus are actually being sold to the employees of San Miguel Corporation. So this is being, as mentioned, this is being mentored and trained by the graduates of the Seed Philippines. Another community food farm in Luzon is in Quezon City. This is located along Katipunan, going to Ateneo. So it's one. This place is actually a rocky. There's a lot of stone in this area. The place is not stable, but still the community were able to produce various vegetables in that area. Apart from supplying it to the GK communities, they're actually beginning to establish market to the public market nearby. And some of the organizations are actually beginning to help this community. As of today, one of the updates that I get from the member of the community is they're actually starting to build greenhouse in that place. Third community food farm in Luzon is the one in Quezon province. So this is a bit large area. We're talking about 1,800 square meters. So they're actually producing it's an integrated farm, producing vegetables and poultry and livestock, both hogs and goats. So that's why it's actually composed of about 20 members helping together in developing the land. So yeah, next slide. So this still in Quezon province in Buena Vista, Quezon. Next slide. And this one in yeah. Then in Visayas, we also have in Bacolod City. Yeah, this Bacolod City is actually able to supply produce, fresh produce in 100 plus families, and now beginning to plan to supply high value crops such as lettuce in different restaurants in Bacolod City. Next slide, please. And just run through with the different community food farms that we still have in Leyte. We have in Alang-Alang, Leyte. Next. Southern Leyte. Just give you a quick, and this one in community food farms we have in different communities in Eastern Samar. We have in Dolores. We also have in next slide. Can Avid. And next slide. Carmen, and I think we have last one in Eastern Samar. I know this one is in Mindanao. So next slide, please. So still in Eastern Samar. And we also have a community food farm in Bohol and Cebu. So this one in Sagbayan, the other one is in Cebu. So next, community food farms are actually located in Mindanao. Most of them are actually school-based community food farms, meaning they're located inside the school wherein the nanays of the children are actually working together to produce a certain vegetables. And so once they harvested these vegetables, they supply that one in the canteen to feed their children during lunchtime. So it's like it's the community food farm is being integrated in the feeding program of the school. So this one is in Lanao del Sur. Next. And we also have different community food farms in Davao del Sur. So we have in Sulup, the other one in Hagonoy. This one in Matanao, and the last one is in Hagunoy. Yeah. Apart from Davao del Sur, we also have community food farm in South Cotabato. Davao City, the next is South Cotabato. Yeah. This one is also a school-based community food farm. Yeah, this one. Next slide. Still a school-based community food farm. Next slide, please. And this one is in Siargao. So we have around 5 community food farms in Siargao Island. When we started the community food farms in Siargao, the basic intention is to really help communities produce their own food supply. But now, as years goes by, we've been working in these communities for 2 years already, and now they're beginning to supply high-value crops like lettuce, kale, ampalaya in the different restaurants in General Luna. General Luna is one of the barangay where there's a lot of tourists or foreigners coming in. Yeah. Next slide. So this one, this still in community in Siargao Island. They're being recognized by the Department of Agriculture. In fact, this was 3 months ago wherein the Department of Agriculture provided a hand tractor and a shredder to the community to assist them in their plan of mass production of their community food farm. So this can actually lessen the labor need in producing crops in their community. The next slide. So this is it's actually a statement of one of our community food farm organizer, Monrea Agustin, who hails from Bulacan, now being assigned in the different community food farms in Marawi, in Lanao del Sur. So her statement was she's very grateful in guiding and mentoring different communities in Mindanao, and it's a bit difficult for her, especially when she started arrive in this community because this is a Muslim area. But after several months of working really hard with these communities are actually now producing a lot of vegetables, and these vegetables, first is they supply this one to the different canteens of the school, since most of the community food farms that they've established are school-based. But since they're going into mass production, they actually have this surplus. And one of the success stories that we have in Marawi, actually, these communities are collectively working together to produce lemongrass that being supplied now in one of the restaurants in Marawi. And these communities are also working together, really planning to have an organic trading post in their area. And yeah, she's very grateful that despite the religion, she was actually accepted by our Muslim brothers and sisters, and that for her is a greatest achievement. So yeah, that's all for the community food farms by Gawad Kalinga. Thank you.
Thank you, Norhaya. And again, no, thank you to the two presentations that we had uh, this afternoon. So maybe we can give both Doc Gilbert and Norhaya a warm round of electronic applause. No? So thank you very much, no, for the presentations that you've made. No? So before we have our reactions, let me just synthesize the two presentations that were made earlier. Dr. Gilbert's presentation emphasized the country's persistent food insecurity, with the Philippines ranking below the global average in food security indices and experiencing high malnutrition rates, especially among children in rural and impoverished areas. He outlined the key factors contributing to food insecurity, including poverty, unemployment, agricultural inefficiencies, and climate vulnerabilities. And he emphasized the importance of trying to examine institutional weaknesses, fragmented governance, and inconsistent policies, which exacerbate the different challenges. And therefore, these require a dual-track approach that combines short-term social protection programs with long-term agricultural modernization. A very key insight that he made. No? And strengthening, therefore, policy coordination among agencies in investing in sustainable food systems were identified as essential steps in achieving food security and economic resilience. Complementing this institutional perspective, Mark Lawrence Cruz, represented by Norhaya Libakaling of Kalinga, underscored the importance of community-driven solutions to food insecurity. The presentation showcased successful grassroots initiatives, more specifically the Kusina ng Kalinga, which provides nutritious meals to vulnerable children, and sustainable farming programs that empower small-scale farmers. She emphasized the need for multi-sectoral collaboration, involving civil society, academia, and the private sector to create localized, sustainable solutions. Furthermore, she highlighted the role of the youth in advocating for food security and economic literacy to drive long-term change. So the synthesis of both presentation underscores the needs for an integrated approach, combining governance reforms, institutional accountability, and community empowerment to ensure a more food secure and resilient Philippines. So thank you very much again, Dr. Gilbert and Orhaya, and I hope you can still stay for the three reactions and also a short open forum afterwards. Let me now introduce to you the actors of the presentation, and let me just introduce them one by one, before they give their reactions. First, the actor is Ms. Grace Salve Demol, who is a dedicated professional with a background in nursing and education. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the John Paul II College of Davao and earned units for a Bachelor of Secondary Education major in Biological Science from Davao Vision College. A licensed nurse and teacher, she has experience in healthcare, education, and administrative roles. With a strong passion for teaching in healthcare, Grace has worked as a staff nurse, administrative assistant, and then school nurse in various institutions, including Ateneo de Davao and Davao Vision College. Her professional development includes numerous trainings and certifications. In addition, she has actively participated in volunteer initiatives. At present, she is a program officer who handles the program Duyog, the Gift of Food Initiative, a feeding program of the Ateneo de Davao University. Our second reactor is Nina Lilo Consuelo Sition, a volunteer at heart. Her volunteer work started when she was in Xavier University High School, Ateneo de Cagayan, through an organization called the Light Cavalry Leadership Community, where she taught formation and community development as well as provided volunteer work with the Habitat for Humanity and the Face to Faith under the Tony Blair Foundation. Her passion for volunteering and service continued when she took up medical technology in Vélez College in Cebu City, where she co-founded Statigos in 2018, a volunteer and leadership organization that has empowered students and provided charitable works for families since its founding. She's now a third-year medical student in Dr. Jose P. Rizal School of Medicine back in her hometown, Cagayan de Oro City, where she and her team are currently working on a startup called Project Lihok, a community-based mobile physical rehabilitation for the elderly. So inspired by the Ignatian value to be a person for and with others, Lilo is constantly in the pursuit to be a steward for service. Our third reactor, and certainly not the least, Miss Justine Ong is a health sciences senior at Ateneo de Manila University with interests evolving around health communication and literacy. Her experiences as an OSCI student volunteer and a student leader of Project Laan has developed her commitment for public health, particularly on empowering individuals and communities to achieve their desired health outcomes. These involvements allow her to continue to learn more about herself and her advocacy as she hopes to pursue a career in the development sector or in the field of health promotion after graduating from college. Thank you very much for all the these reactors for agreeing to react to the two presentations. Let's first have Grace. Grace, please go
Hello,
ahead.
good afternoon.
Yes, we can hear
Hello,
you.
good afternoon. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sir Randy. So good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'll be giving insights on our program, the Gift of Food Initiative. No, this is related. We are related to our malnutrition malnutrition. So the Ateneo de Manila University, through the University Community Engagement and Advocacy Council, established the program Duyog, the Gift of Food Initiative for the sole purpose of helping urban communities and those at the peripheries fight the ill effects of malnutrition, which has become prevalent due to many reasons. The program is aligned to the universal call of ending hunger, achieving food security and improved nutrition, and promotion of sustainable agriculture as stipulated in one of the SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Thinking of contributing to the elevation, if not eradication, of this phenomenon, our institution thought of initiating a program relevant to discuss. Hence, the Duyog, the Gift of Food Initiative was born. I think all of us would agree that the program is very rewarding initiative. Indeed, it is. However, on the hindsight, it is also challenging as malnutrition looms every year. In 2024, malnutrition in Davao City alone increased to 3.1% according to PIA. How can we ever stop this? It is a question that needs constant discernment, and perhaps implicitly, if not explicitly, it calls us to be proactive to help our brothers and sisters, the children especially, to be freed from the shackles of this problem. Within 4 years of its operation, Duyog has catered 11 barangays in Davao City and in Talaingo, Davao del Norte, with a total of 1,135 children. You might ask, how do we identify the participants? So recipients of this program are children, those who are aged ranges from 2 to 12 years old. With the help of the barangay nutritionists, nutrition scholars, barangay health workers, city health office, and the community volunteers, the stunted, severely and acutely malnourished children are identified to participate in a series of feeding activities within 3 months. To emphasize furthermore, the project does not only intend to feed because it is a feeding program. It also intends to educate the families of the participants about the essentiality of providing nutritious food as well as sanitation, and its impact on children's daily activities, Hence, the program becomes a familial advocacy on nutrition. Who would ever think about parents, though living in poverty, would ask about how they would motivate and encourage their children to eat vegetables? Yet, this is the common question of parents every time we conduct the orientation before the feeding program commences. When parents are aware that their children are recipients of the program, you could see the happiness on their faces. Yet, when the menu is presented to them with the green leafy vegetables are the main ingredients, some of them will start asking, how can I ask my child to eat vegetables? That is why the orientation is very necessary for the parents to understand and be aware of their roles. In the orientation, parents are taught how to cook and what to cook as a part of the program. We always emphasizes to the parents that being a role model, they should also eat vegetables. Ika nga, ang sinasabi ko sa kanila, every time we started, we have this parent orientation, sinasabi ko sa kanila na kung ano yung kinakain ng magulang, yan din ang kinakain ng mga anak. So, the child is not a good listener. Child is a good imitator. So, kung junk food ang kinakain ng ina, yun din ang kinakain ng anak. So, for 3 months, this will be the program of all the recipients. You could see the hesitation of the parents at the start, especially when they are made aware that they will be cooking for their children. Because some thought that it is a conventional feeding, yet they are surprised that they will be involved because the whole duration of the activity. It is not just a journey only for the children to be healthy, but also for the parents as primary collaborators. In fact, you can see the glow in the parents' faces as they witness the improvements of their sons and daughters. One parent had this remark during our visit in one of the communities. Sinasabi niya, because of the feeding program, kumakain na ng anak niya yung tortang kalabasa at puso ng saging. According to the initial analysis provided by the Ateneo de Manila Mathematics Society, using descriptive statistics, which they summarize both the baseline and after 3 months of feeding, the program is significantly effective in improving the health status of the children across 11 barangays. However, the question still lingers, how to sustain feeding nutritious food to these children after the program. Will the parents be able to sustain? There might be various factors for not sustaining the healthy journey, and the huge reason for that is the poverty. Good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace, for the insights coming from the program being undertaken by the Xavier University. By the Ateneo de Manila University. Let's go now to the next, to Lilo. Lilo, may we have your reactions?
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm tasked actually to speak on the perspective between the disparity of urban and rural food accessibility. And with that, I'd like to first and foremost begin with the examples of problems regarding this matter. So first and foremost, we have urban areas and rural areas, and there are many problems regards to this. So there are many different aspects that we can actually identify. For example, food availability in comparison between urban areas and rural areas. For example, in urban areas, there is a wide variety of food options such as supermarkets, restaurants, and convenience stores. However, in rural areas, when it comes to food availability, there may be a limitation on food resources. There are only smaller markets, and the immediate access or resource are homegrown produce. Another example or aspect for this is malnutrition risk. For example, in urban areas, there is a much lower diet-related diseases such as obesity, diabetes. Those are the problems that are arising. However, rural areas, there is a more prevalent issue of nutrient deficiencies. When it also comes to the aspect of food prices in urban areas, there is higher food prices due to the transport, rent, and import costs. However, when it comes to rural areas, there may be a lower cost for local produce However, there is still a possibility of higher food prices due to imported and processed goods that would have to be imported to the area. When it also comes to food consumption in urban areas, there is a higher reliance on instant, processed, and convenient or fast food rather. When it comes to rural areas, there is more consumption of fresh or seasonal produce. And lastly, when it comes to food waste, the last aspect, when it comes to urban areas, there is more waste due to overproduction as well as consumer habits. But when it comes to rural areas, there may be lesser waste. However, food spoilage can be an issue due to storage limitations. Now, given all these problems that we've identified, along with its aspects, with regards to how we compare and contrast urban areas versus rural areas, how can we resolve situations or problems such as this? Primarily, it's important that we identify and categorize problems. A good example is what was mentioned earlier. We identified each of the problems between urban and rural areas and identified different categories. For example, like availability, food prices, food consumption, malnutrition risk. Now, once we've identified and categorized these problems, we also understand that there are so many things to worry about. There's so many things to be concerned about. Also, as mentioned from the talk earlier. So it's important that we need to do a priority or risk stratification on these problems. So what is most urgent? What is not as urgent? Afterwards, once we've identified these problems and did a risk stratification, we can then identify target benefactors to fund or support in the implementation. Okay, so moving forward, as mentioned earlier, when it comes to risk or priority stratification, for immediate problems or immediate solutions rather, we already have existing programs or existing policies that support much better accountability when it comes to food security. For example, if we have these existing programs already, what we can do is to lobby for better regulation, better implementation, and better resource allocation of these existing programs. Next, for short-term solutions, there could then be structural improvements and logistics. Moving forward, once we have then answered the immediate and short-term solutions, we can then go to long-term solutions, and this can be done through systemic change, more so sustainability through legislative, environmental, economical, as well as resource or supply perspectives. Next, most especially, is to identify key performance indicators in order to usher for better monitoring, in order to overall generate better sustainability for all of these resolutions. Now, the next question is, given the examples of all these problems and technical aspects on how we can resolve these problems, who is now responsible? As mentioned prior, it really is a whole of community approach. There is a Jesuit saying that goes, when you are given blessings, blessings are given through you. It is people like us who can initiate the conversation and education or orientation on conversations such as this, linking institutions, having public and private partnerships in order to generate community accountability. And to end everything, in the spirit of the Filipino value of bayanihan, a community such as this can only be resolved through a community approach. And with that, thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Lilo, for your reactions. Let us go now to the next, to Justine, for her reactions.
Okay, so thank you po for that two talks. And good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Justine. I am a health sci major. So siguro my exposure to this nutrition to our nutrition problems would be, I guess, from my experiences. Also as a student volunteer and in my class, since in one of my class, we looked into how children are underperforming in schools, and we could directly link it to how some of them go to classes ng gutom, ng hindi ready na puyat ganyan. And then we could see how there are existing solutions in place for that, like they have they have a feeding program, pero it doesn't really sustain, it's not really sustainable in a sense na when pag tapos na, hindi na, or wala nang interventions na nangyayari. So it would draw back to the role of the parents na why are these children not eating healthy? Why are these children going to school hungry? And then you'd see na parang it doesn't really stop at the parents level kasi it would also open discussions for could the parents afford to buy food, buy nutritious food for the family. So from like that simple from that simple na it's a children malnutrition thing, it goes beyond to the parents. And similarly, we're doing this one project for my other class, and it's more focused in my city in Marikina. And one of the concerns that they brought up was that preschool children don't recognize fruits and vegetables. So especially the local ones, hindi nila alam kung ano yung tsura, kung anong lasa, because there's also no exposure. And it also draws back to that because, as mentioned po by Miss Grace kanina na, parents are the role models of children. So what they give out at home is what children are exposed to. And if walang early exposure at home, then children wouldn't really recognize these things. So beyond, and then pag titignan in terms of parents, we'd also see how food like this are so expensive, and so it also draws back to socioeconomic disparities, to income disparities na hindi nila afford talagang bumili ng food. That's why hindi siya mahain sa bahay. So I think we don't see the effects now, like in terms of the large scale. Kasi children are young, and hindi pa naman sila masyadong nag-aambag in the society. But if this continues to prevail and children grow up to be our productive labor force, we will eventually have to face the consequences in terms of productivity of the labor force. But other than that, as mentioned earlier, there are also health risks and developmental challenges when this continues to prevail. So I think it's also important na we need to address this issue as our immediate needs and long-term challenges. So it's nice na Gawad Kalinga has this community food farms. I think that's really helpful. But in the long term or in a larger scale, we also need better governance for it. As also mentioned earlier, we have good systems, but the implementation-wise, dun parati nagkukulang. So I hope na we pull through with that. And I guess one of my main insights for like this webinar is it's important that there is access. But it was mentioned kanina na food security isn't just the lack of available food. It's also accessibility, utilization, and stability na there is available food any time of the year. So I think looking at this problem, it's important to not just ensure that there are spaces or avenues for everyone to buy food, for everyone to access it, but they also have the means to do so. So ayun, I believe that I agree that we need more proactive, more than a reactive approach, since we might be reaping the consequences which are much more worse in the future. And I think our current interventions, like yung Sagawad Kalinga, it's very promising. And we could see how building up small from the communities really makes an impact. The testimonies that was mentioned earlier, we could see how more than just answering the problem for food security, there's also building up on social cohesion, which is really a promising intervention. And I hope that we can apply that to other more communities.
Hey, thank you very much, Justin, and for that very interesting insights, and also for the emphasizing the role of families, and especially parents in addressing these issues. Anyway, before we go to the open forum, let me just synthesize the points that actually came out from the discussion, from the presentation, and also the reaction. So one point that came out is the importance really of identify the issue of institutional gaps and governance challenges. Actually, as presented by Doc Gilbert, issue of weak policy coordination, fragmented government responses, and lack of accountability in their efforts to ensure food security and address nutrition. High malnutrition rates contribute to very poor health outcomes, lower productivity, and high estimated economic loss. So I think the figure of around 1.5% of GDP actually came out. The need for a dual track approach for food security, combining short-term social protection with long-term agricultural modernization, and the need for policy coherence and multi-sectoral action. So systems approach that is required with better interagency coordination and local government engagement to implement sustainable food security policies. The importance also of grassroots and community-led solutions, programs like Kusina ng Kalinga and Duyong, demonstrating how localized nutrition-focused initiatives can directly address food insecurity in vulnerable communities. The need to also ensure and empower small farmers and fisherfolk through skills training, access to market, climate adaptive farming practices. The need also for partnerships between civil society, academia, local governments, and private enterprises are essential for food security initiatives to be effective and scalable. Therefore, also the role of families, especially parents, in addressing the nutrition problem is very important. And also the importance also of youth involvement in economic literacy, trying to ensure that future generations are able to contribute to food security and economic sustainability, and also the consideration of the need of the differences between urban and rural issues, including in the prices of food and food waste. So at this point, we will now go to our open forum, and we hope that we'd like to invite our main presenters and also reactors to address some of the issues or questions that our audience actually are asking. Again, for the others, for our participants, if you have any questions, or comments on the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will read the questions in order that they are written in the chat box. First, let me read the question coming from one of our faculty members at the School of Government, Professor Mian Perez, asking a question to Norhaya. How are the CFFs established? Is it only through GK? Is this the first step in identifying an organized group? How are the CFFs being promoted so other sites, particularly island communities, can establish the same?
Okay. Well, going back to when we started this program, the Community Food Farm back in 2021, we actually began establishing Community Food Farm in partnership with San Miguel Foundation during the time of pandemic to assist their employees. Well, first we begin to assist communities, especially GK communities, but eventually with the impact that it is being provided to different communities, we slowly expanded not just in GK communities but also in BWI and other communities, depending on what's the suggestion of the donor or what's the suggestion of the funder for a certain community food farm. So yeah, just to make it the story short, this program is not just for GK, not for BWI, but actually it is being open to other communities as well.
Thank you, Norhaya, for that point. Okay. Are there any questions for Dr. Lianto, no, for Norhaya, and also for the actors, no, Grace, Lilo, and Justin? Okay, we have another question in the chat. Is the from Nenel Villeflor, one of our participants. Is the GK community food concept geared towards industrialization of small farms or more of maintenance of individual or small farms? Are they on an annual basis generating profits further to increase families' consumption?
Okay, well, to answer that one, when we begin the program, our main goal is really for food augmentation, because we wanted to address hunger and malnutrition. But eventually, we realized along the way that sustainability of this community food farm is very crucial. That's why this small farms or small community food farms, what we did is we actually clustered them into a cluster, like for example, in Marawi City, we clustered the different community food farms of 5 community food farms, and they begin to supply different produce in restaurants, in the local restaurants. So the income that they get from that selling of produce, they actually use that one as a seed fund to expand their production, and at the same time also used to buy other source of food, like for example rice, or for example other produce that this community food farm cannot provide. So yeah, we're gearing towards community food farm enterprise today.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, Arhaya. We have another question also from the chat. Maybe we can invite at this point also Doc Gilbert to maybe if you have some thoughts also on this question. How can government institutions be able to clone the community food farm? So do you think these are very important? Are these also, do you think this will make a significant dent? I mean, these are very, I mean, small scale, no? And how do you see this, for example, linking with larger initiatives, no, programs that government is undertaking?
Hi, thank you for that question. I think it's very relevant, and it's a good strategy. In fact, I was flipping through the contents of the post-pandemic book that I showed earlier. Am I on the screen?
Yes, that's the book that was created by the project, published by
I
your.
asked Professor Emma Porio to write a chapter on community resilience, innovations, and food security. So this chapter is consistent with the community farm approach that was discussed earlier. So the quick answer is yes. In fact, I invite you to read the chapter of Emma Porio. Available. Anyone can download this. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gilbert. So the book, I think
Kasi yung emphasis ng book, full of community approach, I think, which was reiterated by one of the discussants.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Yes, I think everyone can download this book. It's a very interesting book. I also have a hard copy of the book. So if there are others who want to study further this issue of nutrition, I think also Edgar and Tina, who's helping coordinate also this working group, they have also copies of the book. Now, please also, we'll try to send a link for you to download the book that was edited by
Title of the book is Post-Pandemic Policy for Food Security.
Okay.
And there are two volumes 1 and 2.
Yes.
Written by scholars, UP Ateneo.
And you edited the book, Dr. Gilbert. I remember that.
Yeah. I edited the book.
Yes. Yeah,
so it should be good.
The first chapter. Yes.
I'm advertising. Free naman to. I think everyone should get a copy. Interesting ang mga chapters ito. There's a chapter on water and food security. There's a chapter on land reform. Yung kay taga-Ateneo din ito si Sheena Valenzuela, dati Ateneo.
Yes.
Ensuring food security through the blue economy.
Yeah, Sheena used to be with the School of Government as well.
Yeah. Chapter 3, ensuring food security through the blue economy. So, magamit to. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, the book is free.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Edgar, for
you made point. And yeah, I think for the Ateneo working group, I think maybe we should also examine the bookmark closely. No, that will guide our future webinars. Are there any other questions that you might as participants you might want to address? So okay, so from Dr. Liamson, Tina Liamson, one of our working group members. You mentioned the for Dr. Gilbert again. You mentioned the importance of government agencies accountable, well, agencies other than the DA. I was wondering that you didn't seem to mention the critical role that nutrition agencies, so I guess these are agencies like the National Nutrition Council, no? The Food and Nutrition Research Institute, that are placed in the food security framework, including DepEd, so DepEd, so that doesn't seem to be enough focus on the importance of integration of agriculture, nutrition, and health. So
I
why
cannot
can't
agree more. I cannot agree more. Tama yun. Siguro nandun sa kasama sa et cetera. Hindi ko lang na-mention. But I stand corrected. FNRI and the other nutrition agencies. National Nutrition Council, meron pa ba yun? Dati meron. Yeah, right. Tama. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so and also the integration of nutrition and health, and maybe the
Yes,
important
in the DepEd curriculum.
yeah, DepEd, and also as
That's
well.
right. Thank you. Thank you for flagging that.
Okay, we have another Doctina. I don't know if you have a follow-up or that's okay. Let's go now to the next question from LNU. CFFs are really interesting. Kudos to this initiative. Okay, so well, anyway, I think I answered already. I already asked this question. Are there mechanisms that GK can do to further collaborate on this activity with LGU? So Norhaya, I think you answered the important role that LGUs can play, on this process. Tama ba? You want to answer, Norhaya?
Yeah, as I mentioned a while ago during my presentation, the problem is actually huge, and we we have to accept the reality that, I mean, we're just a small organization that we cannot do it alone. And for us to be able to address this huge problem, we need a lot of stakeholders work hand in hand, may it be in a government or private. And since this community food farms is a short, we really trying hard to work with the local government units, especially in the barangay level, because their rule in the sustainability of in how to sustain this community food farm is very crucial, especially when the community food farm organizer exit the in the community after the timeline of the program. So malaki po yung role ng LGU dito. That's why we in the process we actually collaborate with the local government units, especially the barangay and the municipal agriculture office.
So thank you again, Norhaya. I think there's a related question. Which Nes Boyko of FNRI said that maybe this question is already answered, but unless you have other points on how LGUs more specifically have a role or input into the program. Yeah.
What was the question, sir?
I mean, is there a specific role that LGUs play in the program?
Well, this community food farm is actually same strategy with the Gulayan sa Paaralan. It's a matter of trying to evolve the process since we're talking about community and we're not talking about the school. Yeah, just the same process. But in seed and in Gawad Kalinga, the main ingredient that make this community food farm successful is actually the role of the community food farm organizer, because we believe that training alone is not enough. We need to mentor these communities in applying whatever they learn from the lecture or from the training. They need a day-to-day mentoring process. That's why in our program, we ask our community food farm organizer to really live in the community for about 1 year. And after 1 year, that is the time that they begin to process the exit of the community food farm organizer. It's like integrating the capacity building at the same time, values formation and community organizing. Yeah, that's the ingredient. And I guess the government can also do this as long as there's different departments of the government that should work together in implementing this kind of program.
Yes, yes, that answer also the question Mark Anthony asked now from Batangas State University. What is really the motivation for GK, so that it allows its communities to participate? So maybe addressing really the food problems in the community, motivates the organizers to have this community food farms already. Okay, thank you, Norhaya. There's another question also from Dr. Liamson again. Why so much focus on communities? And I think Doc Gilbert, you answered already the shallow understanding of the problem of nutrition, food security, and human capital among those agencies. So
Yes, that's right. That's why we emphasize
Elaborate.
accountability and a more effective institutional structure, which is absent right now. Nagtuturuan ng agencies.
So there's really a need for accountable institutions that will harmonize really the efforts, as you said. And any specific suggestion on what sort of structure do you envision it? I mean, in answering this, or is it really again, is it the president should lead this, or should there be a coordinating agency, or how do you envision this? Really trying to be accountable and really to be
Yes. Well,
integrated.
in government, there is a group called the economic managers, diba? So it starts from there. Economic managers bring in the likes of the FNRI and the other guys involved with food and nutrition, and select somebody there among the economic managers, probably the NEDA secretary or a DBM. Importante yung DBM kasi siya magpopondo eh. And really give them a task, and then meron tawag dito, performance commitment. And what I'm saying is maybe we should ask them to report regularly, probably annually, to Congress. Para sabihin, itong ginawa namin, itong di namin nagawa, and then let the appropriate sanctions be exercised, whether there will be positive sanctions or negative sanctions. That's what is lacking in the country. So easy to pass the buck. Sabihin lang, kasi binagyo eh. Kasi bumaha. Kasi taas ang tariff, etc. So wala accountability. So easy to escape accountability under the present system. But what I'm proposing is select somebody there and make him really answerable. Heads do not roll kasi even if secretaries do not perform, they get away with it. Meron ka ba nadinig na fire na secretary? Wala naman. Well, they're asked to resign. Baka fired na yan. Voluntary resignation. Pero wala nga. Saka ano bang yardstick? Ano pinag-usapan natin? Maybe it's bringing down the global hunger index by so much per year. Walang targets eh. Ganun. Kasama yun sa accountability.
And maybe set also targets for different levels of the subnational level also as well. I mean, really hold also accountable in governors, mayors also.
Oh, that's right. And make us responsible for what's happening in Barm. Wait, by us, I mean people here in the more prosperous areas. Diba? Sa Barm, you know what's happening here? We're growing a nation of morons. Because the GHI, yung human capital index, lower by 48%. Kung malnourished yung bata. The prediction is he or she will be performing really below the potential. And the below is it's almost 50% of potential. So the implication is a nation of morons. Other people are losing people, under population, diba? Dying, aging. Tayo naman, we grow more morons. So, iba mas walang tao. Tayo naman maraming tao pero morons. Sorry, I'm dramatizing.
I mean, yeah, that's a very important. But the DSWD recently launched, I know, diba? There's a program and supposedly it's supported by the World Bank. I mean, would you have any specifics on how is it working now? They should have this. In fact, I was, they've invited a few of, well, I'm an individual member of Galing Pook, and I think they have this, they've invited also Galing Pook to maybe just highlight also the work that different local government units are doing, in terms of nutrition. And I know that the SWD was supposed to have a World Bank loan just for addressing nutrition problems. But I don't know how their nutrition program is
But-
working.
Well, strategy-wise, maybe the Kalimpok approach will work. Because if you can show that this particular LGUs is really making a headway with respect to malnutrition in their territory, and then their awards, baka ganun eh. Some sort of competition, recognition. And then people would know for sure who are the more responsible leaders. Now, let me get back to this Dr. Yamson's question. Ang ganda ito eh. We know about the SWD, DepEd, and other, including food stamps. Yun ang nga problema sa gobyerno, was in government for a long time. Short-termism eh. Short term. They don't think long term. Kaya the solutions are those right before you. So may disaster, okay, let's bring there some food stuff, but there's no long-term thinking. That's what we need to introduce in government. I cannot agree more again dito sa sinabi niya. And they not responding to the data, which is staring them in the face. And what are your long-term solutions? So solution is food stamp. Very frustrating. Hindi
So
talaga, hindi meaningful, significant. And then the solutions are there right before us. If I mentioned one, underperformance of agriculture. So why don't we modernize agriculture? Why don't we transform the sector? And then the political economy of trade. We worry too much about food imports, but if you have no food imports, then everybody will die of hunger because we cannot produce what we need. It's a case of management, food system management. Bringing the imports when it's really lean season. And then really make the smugglers pay. Kasi nung pumapatay dun sa ng mga farmers, food smuggling. Kaya naman
Yes.
gawin yun.
Yeah.
But the smugglers are in the Bureau of Customs or in cahoots, as shown by experience with the drugs, di ba?
And that's the dual track approach that you mentioned, and the importance. And yung nga, problem or yung nga, I think sometimes we're too focused on, as you said, no, short term or Congress, so, on ayuda, but not really your long term.
Kasi yun yung yun ang makikita ng tao, food stamp. So, kaagad, meron. But the long-term solutions, you lay it down, you don't generate the gains, you don't reap the gains, so to speak, in the short term. It's long term. Eh. If you start modernizing agriculture during this administration, okay, the results might be to administration's hands. But you don't care about the administration's hands, you care about your current administration. So your solutions will be geared to a very short-term period or medium term. Despite the fact that we have the PDP, Philippine Development Plan, supposed to be looking long-term. Maybe we should bring it to government, Randy. Ikaw na lang.
I think there are a lot of experts, including you, who are capable. The next, I think there's a question here, and you might want to answer this also, Doc Gilbert, or even the other actors. No, maybe again from Prof. Ami Perez. No, the need, maybe the mayor should bring in also the municipal agricultural officer and the municipal health officer, addressing the question of malnutrition among children, and hire community organizers to implement community farms. So could community farms be a viable a system for local government units to address this problem. And there's also a question here on what are the incentives, no, for vegetable farmers to sustain their work. So what to answer, Norhaya, you may have answered this already.
Yes, yeah, that's actually the process in building the community food farm. The first thing that we actually do is we assist the communities in crafting a policy on how are they going to divide the harvest as well as the income. But we also emphasize to the community that there should be a part of their income that should goes to the seed fund, because this will be used in the continuous production of crops. So they will use it in buying inputs like seeds and fertilizers. So in crafting the policies, this is actually this should come from the community, the idea of the community. So kami ay taga-guide lang po at taga-pasilidad nung ideas ng community. But one of the strategies also that we did in supporting this community, especially if we're going to talk about sustainability of this community food farm. Kasi tama yung iba, anong mangyayari kapag umalis na kami doon or matapos na yung programa? Sino yung magtutuloy? And one of the strategy that we did in order to prepare the community is to really empower them by one is linking them to the different stakeholders or institution like the local government unit, so they can actually on their own they can do transaction with the government because there's a lot of programs in the Department of Agriculture. They can actually access free inputs, free fertilizer, and other things that they can use in the farm. And empowering them is the main strategy, so they can have this courage to talk to these people. Apart from the supporting agencies, we also link them to institutional buyers, so they can have the power to negotiate in terms of prices para hindi din sila malugi. Because we wanted to change that mindset na hindi pwede na yung nagdidikta ng presyo is yung bibili. It should be the seller or the producer should always dictate the price depending on what's the cost of the commodities. Yeah, it's a tedious process, but yeah, pero once you begin to work with the communities, especially integrating their talent, their skills, it's actually make the process easier. That's why the role of the community food farm organizer as well, living in the community by really making their presence available, especially in the time na kailangan sila, is very important.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, let's thank you, Norhaya, again for answering the question. So next question, I think this is from Paulo Serra. I think he's a student, tama ba, Paulo, from Ateneo de Manila. To Sir Gilbert Llanto, bakit hindi pa rin nawawala yung mga rice hoarders and smugglers that export our rice and manipulate prices when we need them more here in the Philippines? So I guess parang the question is, you guys did the difficulty really of trying to address smuggling and hoarding also as well. There's a study that was made a few years ago by Briones, I think, showing that I mean we have a lot of PIDs, no, Dr. Briones, of PIDs that we really have a lot of market players. So it's really governments. It's really the onus really is on the burden of government. I mean, in terms of the trying to address the issue of rice supply. Kasi for him, while maybe to some extent there's some price manipulation, I mean, it's not as extensive as we thought to be, but really it's the mistiming of how government buys and markets price. So I don't know if you would agree also with that.
Prof. Randy, you have answered the question.
Okay, sige. Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe
But I would hasten to add.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we haven't seen any conviction of any smuggler, di ba?
Oh, yeah.
So it's a governance issue.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But I'd like to go back to that question by Miss Amihan, if I recall,
Yeah,
Amihan
right.
Baqueras.
Yeah.
Yung asking the MAU and the MHO to work with the community organizer. I think that's a very good, I think, very relevant suggestion. Ang comment ko lang doon, let's professionalize itong mga MAU, ng agricultural officers. In the olden days, before decentralization, the agriculture technicians are national government employees and they're supposed to be professionals, diba? But then came decentralization, you allow the mayors to appoint local municipal agricultural officers. What happened was, okay, nawala yung national extension program. It's been decentralized. So the quality of the extension depends on the quality of the appointment made by the local mayors. Now there are anecdotal stories saying that the mayors did not appoint professional agriculturists, but appointed political supporters or relatives. How pervasive is that? I don't know, but there's this anecdote. So when we say let's link these guys together, let's see to it that these are really real agriculturists and real health officers. Kasi effective yung yung pinapaliwanag ni Norhaya kanina, yung GK, yung program. It's coming from the initiative coming from the private sector. So it's government is bound to respond to this. It works. So kung yung mayor will just link yung government resources with private resources, then this problem of malnutrition, undernourishment could be solved. Hindi naman sinasabi sa nutrition literature na you have to eat chicken breast all the time, di ba? Depende sa depende sa diet, di ba? I'm not a nutritionist, but the protein you can get from different sources. So it's supposed to be the combination of the proper foods. Hindi naman kailangan yung mga mamahal na pagkain, di ba? So, it's a local problem, it can be solved locally by the community approach. Yung sinasabi kanina ni Prof. Jamson. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that's very important for really trying to think about how do we make our local government personnel also capable. And
So what's coming out is a big problem. It's a national problem, but can the national government solve it? Maybe not in the immediate term. So what could be an immediate solution would be to enjoin local governments to work on it. Kasi pwede mo sabihin local problem yun by municipality ganito So paligsahan ngayon which municipalities can solve this hunger problem. It's a contest. And then siguro with the cooperation of the private sector, they can put up a big kitty for LGUs who are able to solve hunger issue in their localities. May metric naman yan di ba? So pwede ma-pinpoint mo kung sino pwedeng bigyan ng, let's say, big prize or award. So it could be a local solution to a national problem. You cannot expect national government to solve a local problem. So this time, that the locals solve a national problem. Thank you.
yeah, so that's what's very good about your presentation earlier. But it's not only a policy, focused policy solution. Really thinking about how we bring together the different institutions, different stakeholders, and trying to address this problem. So thank you very much for the presentation. That's I think we have a last question from one of our, again, from Mabel España, from FNRI, from one of our participants. No? I think I will address this question to our reactors, maybe Grace or Lilo or Justin, you can answer this question. In the world of Generation Z or Generation A, sitting in the computer and cell phone whole day, how can you influence adult people to address this problem? So I think maybe our reactors might want to have their thoughts on this issue. So Grace, would you want to address this question?
Hello, good afternoon. So the question was, is this in this world of Generation Z or Gen A sitting in a computer and cell phone whole day, how can you influence these adult people? Oh my God. Actually, influence through, since they are into a social, we are into social media, then we influence them through social media, the importance of eating nutritious food. So I think that's one of, maybe that's one that we can influence the adult people. And also the yes, we can discuss, we can emphasize the importance of eating nutritious food. I think that's one, through the social media itself. Hindi na tayo pupunta pa sa iba. Doon na tayo kung saan sila kung saan sila kung saan sila interesado sa kagaya ng social media. Doon tayo magfo-focus if that's how if yun sila into. So yun lang po. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Grace. Yeah, very important. Social media. Lilo, you want to also address this question?
Hi, thank you so much. I actually do like this question as someone who is part of this generation or age bracket. At least based from my experience and what I've noticed on social media is that the key way for this is really to ignite a conversation, and how it's really to start with something that is very personable or relatable to this generation. I noticed that people of this generation easily speak up. They are very vocal. They react to a lot of things as long as it is something, or mostly when it is something that correlates to their own personal experience. So it's something, so we can start from there. Start with something personal, start with something very vulnerable and intimate that these people could relate to, and eventually it could keep the conversation going. The next question is the modality. I like that the previous reactor mentioned about social media. That's true. This is a very social media dependent generation, so might as well use social media. But how? There's Facebook, there's the metaverse, there's all these applications. Really go and identify and start with applications that are like easily consumable in an easily consumable format by this generation. So we have like long form and short form content, and usually what's very consumable now is short form content. So if you can pair something that is very that relates to personal experiences with this generation, along with a short form content in a particular application where there is a lot of footprint, I think that would be such a great way to begin, or make people feel more accountable and make people feel more empowered that they do have a voice and a responsibility for conversations or issues such as this. So I hope that somehow gives some light to this question. I hope that somehow helped as someone who is part of this generation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Lilo. And let's go now lastly to Justin. You want to also react to the question on how they really influence adults?
Okay. I guess for me, I do agree with what the previous two reactors also mentioned. Na it's kind of like meeting where the Gen Zs are, using social media as a means to like amplify this issue. And I think it's also important to um directly kind of like experience or meet people um that are victims or experiencing food insecurity firsthand, because we'd be able to understand that these aren't just data, these are real people suffering. So I think for me, I guess we're fortunate, for Ateneo students, we're fortunate enough to have spaces to meet these people. So I think we have a GK Ateneo volunteer. So maybe you can join organizations or volunteer opportunities where you'd meet people, um, uh, communities and people that are experiencing food insecurity. And I guess looking for those spaces or avenues to get to know what the real issue is and kind of like seeing tangible ways to help.
Thank you. The importance really of immersion. So thanks a lot. And again, no, thanks to our reactors, no, who addressed this question on how they really influence, no, the adult population. There's a last comment, no, before we end. So they have I think this is in reaction to Dr. Lianto's comment, not to earlier, not to the question or suggestion, no, posed by Ami Perez, no, on the role of MAOs, the municipal agricultural officer, the municipal health officer, no, in addressing this issue of nutrition. We have provincial, municipal, city nutrition action officers who lead in addressing malnutrition, but they're not usually full-time, as Dr. Lianto said, no, but they're designated positions. Thus, nutrition is not given that much time or attention. The nutrition action officers should collaborate with different sectors in addressing malnutrition in these communities. So I guess that addresses your question. Your also or reinforces your point, Dr. Gilbert.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And I think this was a very insightful exchange, no, of ideas, and I certainly learned a lot, no, on this issue also again. And therefore, I think we can already conclude this discussion. So as we conclude this thoughtful discussion on institutions, food security, and nutrition, we have really seen how the interplay of governance, policy, coherence, and community-driven initiatives shapes food security in the Philippines. So Dr. Lianto highlighted the institutional and economic challenges that contribute to persistent hunger and malnutrition, emphasizing the need for stronger policy coordination and sustainable agricultural transformation. So the dual track approach. While Ms. De Bacaleng reinforced this by showcasing grassroots solutions that empower communities, particularly through nutrition programs and livelihood support for farmers. The actions and open forum deepened our understanding, raising critical points on engagement of the youth, economic literacy, and the role of multi-sectoral collaboration in achieving long-term food resilience. As we move forward, may today's discussion inspire more concrete actions from policymakers, institutions, and communities towards a more food secure and nutritional healthy Philippines. So before we end, we'd like to show, and then we will be sending the certificates of appreciation to Dr. Lianto, Dr. Gilbert. So thank you again for giving us time in your busy schedule, no, to speak and to present findings in your book. So thank you very much.
Thank
Dr.
you. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Really appreciate the time, Kate. Then we also have a certificate of appreciation for Mark Lawrence Cruz. Sorry, Norhaya, we will just also create a certificate of appreciation also for you. Please also thank also Loleng for giving time also for this. Thank you again also, Norhaya. We have also a certificate of appreciation for Grace Demont. Thank you, Grace, so for being a supporter of this working group. No? Really appreciate the time that you've given. And also to our two other reactors, Miss Nina Lelo Consuelo Tion, and also Miss Justine Abril Ong. So thank you very much to both our speakers, no, and also our reactors, no, for the very enlightening presentation this afternoon. Before we end, we'd like to have a group photo. We maybe ask all our speakers, no, our reactors, and participants of this forum to show open their videos so that Ika can take our photos. Maybe Ika, we can remove the slides first so that you can. Okay, so thank you. Okay, I think we can take our picture. So just let us know, Ika, if how you want to take the pictures.
Nawala ka.
Sige ka. Sino bang who's taking the picture?
Sir Randy, sige po.
Yeah, okay. Sige, Makoy. Go ahead. Just let us know.
Sige po. Naka-open na ba lahat ng ng
Uh,
cam?
Okay, maybe ask also the other participants to open their camera. Okay, I see. Participants from LaSalle, Batangas State University also as well.
I'm not seeing it on my screen kasi.
For at
We're
least
not
for the first
seeing.
few pages, the cameras are already open. I think you can already take that.
Yeah, okay. Sige po. We'll start. Start taking pictures. First page. Okay. This is the second page.
I think we have other spots.
Okay, this is the
Open
third
your
page.
cameras.
This is the fourth page. And the last page, hold your smiles. Okay, done. Thank you.
Thank you, Makoy. And again, thank you everyone for participating in this webinar this afternoon. This is one of our
Music. Good
better
afternoon.
webinars. So thank you
Hey,
very
what's
much
up?
for coming. Please
I'm back.
save the date.
Sige.
Ika, if you can show the slide for our next webinar. Our next food sustainability webinar, SDG2 webinar, will be on June 24, 2025. That's again, I think that's a Tuesday again. Again, we will inform you of who our speakers and presenters will be on that day. So please look at our further announcements now in our Facebook page. And also we will be sending you more of this information in the coming weeks. For those who want a certificate of attendance, we would like to encourage everyone to evaluate this webinar, give your thoughts on what has transpired this afternoon. We're showing now the QR code for assessing our webinar. And the evaluation form is also available in the bit.ly page that is shown in your screen, bit.ly/2025 webinar 1-fs.eval. So we will just leave the QR code, the slide with the QR code, and also the evaluation form link in a while so that you can take note of it. Again, we thank everyone on behalf of the SDG2 working group of the Ateneo. We'd like to thank for you coming to this webinar, and we certainly enjoyed your participation in this webinar. So we hope to see you again this June for our next SDG2 webinar. So maraming salamat.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Laird.
Maraming salamat. Thank you.